Santa Cruz, California, where he teaches at UC Santa Cruz. His biographical note in the back of Thaddeus Mosley's catalog will give you the title of his many books. What the note does not say is that Nate keeps 4 open-ended projects going more or less simultaneously. Another way to say it in a gallery filled with standing sculptures is to say that Nate's work stands on 4 feet. Hambone is his magazine. It was there that I first encountered Thaddeus Mosley's work. Nate runs the magazine like a chef. Issues like dishes take the time they take, and when the ham is ready to fall off the bone, a new issue appears. On Sundays, Nate DJs a world music program over the campus radio station. To say that he keeps his ears wide open is an understatement. The last time I was in a Virgin megastore with him, I walked out with a Fado CD, Jane Birkin's latest, advice to look up the disc Hank Jones cut with various musicians from Mali, and a discography of altoist Sonny Simmons' work during the 1960s and 1970s. And we weren't there 15 minutes. From a broken bottle, traces of perfume still emanate is the overall title of Nate's epistolary novel, now in its 3rd volume, Tet A.D., published by City Lights in 2001. While the books are made up of letters from one N, composer, multi-instrumentalist, and founder of a band once known as the Mystic Horn Society, he's writing to the Angel of Dust. The books are novels because no other word quite fits them. Like his other projects, From a Broken Bottle allows him room enough for whatever's in his imagination. Nate began his career as a poet conventionally enough. I mean, he wrote poems with distinct titles representing specific occasions. But he has long since settled into another of his long solos. Now, most of his poetry energy flows into the songs of the Ndu Mobulu, another loose form, able to accommodate all manner of inspiration. What do these 4 legs tell us? In his introduction to Mosley's catalog, Nate quotes the sculptor, quote, "My wood and stones and I generate themes together," unquote. All of Nate's endeavors generate themes, generate one another. Like Mosley, Nate is an urban, Afro-American, Euro-jazz influenced artist, sustained and pushed forward, not by one note, but by the many that he hears. Nate Mackey.
I gave a lot of thought to what I could read to something called Eat and Sing with Dad's Word. I thought of that construction that Ellington liked so much. He called black, brown, and beige a tone parallel to the history of the American Negro. So I'm going to try to offer some work that maybe generates a tone parallel to that Moses. I found that in thinking about this, what I most went back to is this book, What Said Sarah, a book of poems, in which I really got into this sequence that Bill mentioned, the Song of the Angumbulu. Song of the Angumbulu is the title of a piece of Dogon music that I heard ages ago. And I kind of think of that as an honorary Dogon. You have some Dogon pieces in your collection, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, this Dogon phrase that some of you know my writing, comes up in my work a lot occurred to me in relationship to Thad's work. The Dogon have a loom, and the base on which the loom sits, the weaving block sits, they call it the creaking of the word. And one of the things that is very striking to me about Thad's work is the way in which he lets the cracks in the wood become part of the articulation of the piece. The cracking of the wood somehow resonated with the Dogon creaking of the word. And in the sequence of poems that come up in What Said Sarah, there's a figure or a wish for wood to become water. And I think about that in relationship to Thad's work, especially the piece Source, which Ed Roberson has written about. It's a piece where this business about wood becoming water is quite evident and quite striking. Another thing that Thad and I have in common is that our pieces are made up of pieces. And I want to start with just reading a piece of one of the pieces in which this figure or this wish comes up. It's a part of a song of the Andungulu 20. He who'd have said we, so assured it was a plane we were on, flat for as far as the eye could see around him, Raz with an E on the end. A way of spelling, a spell if by E we meant exit, trackless, the train we rode, so abruptly conductorless, riderless, ghost of what it was, and a weightless, receding as fast as he approached, gone, could he have gotten there. Into the shed might wood be water, Sophic skirt with him under it, as if it was a tent, pitched as would a note be, only were wood, water, rasp our lone resort. That term that musicians use, going into the woodshed, takes on new meaning with Thad's work. There's a couple of these I'll read, and then read a couple more things. This is Song of the Andungulu 29. He spoke in tongues for a time at least. Spoke in tongues until tongues lipped itch exhausted us. Carib whispered into one ear. Crash commandeered the other. Crushed fruit underfoot as if again to begin again. What before so spoke to ritual, relent, begged it be otherwise. Perfume falling from her dress, the heady press of it reft highness underneath. Had its hem draped his neck he dreamt, head wrapped in cloth made the world go away. He her peep show hostage, she his loquat host. This their what if but real, wanting more. World made more real, maybe not knowing which. Fruit found on a bed of snow. Anomalous bed they called loquacious, melodious word whose root they mistook, took to mean loquat, sweet. Obsessed with meaning, made its meaning. Precocious wind, aromatic sky. Loin musk, loquat scent, sex index of underness thickening the air, though the air grow thinner, the higher they climb. Curve of the earth, as if to have already left, thrown world lump, hurt mouth reminder, bruised fruit. Loquat curve, loquacious bend, putative temple talk, ramp, would-be release. Translated Hendrix into Moroccan slang, said he once met the devil on a train outside Milan. This the way it was told to me, I woke up remembering. The train filling up so rapidly, he said, the world wanted him, it seemed. Carash it became, he said next. Carib went on putting its tongue to what ears would listen. For us was the crafty road, it kept assuring us, name not even we could arrest. Abject we, given sibling spin, For us took every curve without even a skid, Carib assured us, rocked us ever so gently, bordered on sleep. Crash could be no more intact than Carib, Crash reminded us. A crack ran through it. Through it we made our escape. It was a boat, whatever it was we were on, or wood water, whirled a diluvian rut, popped earth, remote feather, face, additive altar, world be wet where we both we begged, rods were his to name. That the spirit moved through cloth was his wish. Flag lift her liftedness higher, offered cloth, arrowhead under his pillow the night before, leaf laid in the fork of a tree. She visited him, he visited me, I visited them. She was my leaf laid in the fork of a tree, part said, part sang, nose bled by quartet height. Cut scrub around the trunk of a mubo tree, brought to mind by her dress, limbed epiphany I passed on as hearsay, abrupt visitor going on about light glimpsed underneath, claiming to be me, strange kin. Medicinal sweat wet the arrow he slept with, a saeta he heard at a distance, faint, ghost of his what said self, dead already, called himself so-called me. Off to the side of what altered the closer we came to it, there, the less there we were. Came to the land of the newly tongue, having what to say, but that before they have no voice, we ended up asking. Wood, battling wood, wood's release, that it be water, cloth to caught winds, dry wood. Long night in which the ripped archetypal two took me aside, saw bones where before there were branches, eyes bunched into an X-ray squint. Nothing, not a stitch underneath, he said she wore. Beside himself, talked all out of his head. Pitiless thought, known as meant to be, meant wanted it so. World repossessed, risen, rebegun, wed only if wood became water. More heat than himself, non-pronominal scat we now sang. More than he could say, we saw. But us was our boat, our sub should we go under. He her loquat hostage, she his Gnostic twin. But us was code for buzz. Buzz was also code. Taken aside, for a time at least, we spoke as one. We were three. The spirit being with us made us four. We now called ourselves a quartet, Sophia's coinage. His was her mouth, my mouth, its mouth, no longer undungulus, one. Out of our heads, the more out of our heads it seemed to have come. Quartet, double quartet, quadruple quartet, ad infinitum. Quartet was our what said writ, stropped wish, sky rubbed, earth raw. We were now somewhere whose name was nonsense, voiceless the word whose adumbration bound our book. Book blood, wood's admonition, trickling wood played on by mallets, balafonic bridge we crossed over on. Nonsense wood laid like railroad ties, planked insistence, ribbed water, made word to itself. On the edge of an it, otherwise out of reach, we disembarked, rim of no well we ever drink from, asymptotic water, hyperbolic thirst. Where we were slowly lulled us to sleep. Music from the year I was born leapt off the box. Birds' benzodrine reed woke us up. Too late for that, nonsense wood announced, said without sound. Lactone said it best. Layered save, so mute, so nonsense we winced. Thick skin thinner, the farther we went. Thin skin rubbed away. This is number 30. So somewhere not the same, I strummed an ngoni. Nonsonant strings, so introvert, we wondered why bother, by now no longer the we, who would. Arms lifted wing-like, ready, would we would fly. Slack strings feathering the bones underneath, newly born sense we defeated doubt. Spoke low, strict sticks accompaniment. What limbs we'd given to get to it kept time. Spoofed feet spastic the faster we went, legs taken away by clifter, the other world we were also in. Told a cracked voice told it best, we cracked our voices, took nonsonance itself between our teeth, cracked its cover, called it Book of Dysentery, the book. Itch was our west, ambulacy our north, rasp 11-sided, napped on all sides, angled, endlessly steeped. Entered leaving, elegiac from the start, Sophia said. Them again, I think, shrugged it off. All the songs of the What Sayer's youth were on the box. Aranel, the name he now called her. So much of what he said, so distant, she said, she couldn't quite say what it was. East was an up again ladder. South a late wish it were rungless. Arabic lay to our left. Adam elsewhere conjured, kept after, kept alive, two-way tending, backward born, bent. Up was all erasure, down a blunt stub. Where we were, the music's where, nowhere to be found. He and Aranel lay side by side, he insisted, on their backs looking up at the sky, rift and rescission. Might rift and rescission again lie so at ease. Sound's promise of place fell away, step taken off a cliff, rasp held onto like straw precipice, nudged the non-world we were in, steep release. Though once we set out, suppressed resonance had its way, nonsonant head so hard it rang notwithstanding, sound so in advance of sense we'd surrendered, whoosh rattling our teeth, we were eating wind. The non-song we sang, a Nancy, short of breath, elegiac bone. We walked along, hands deep in our pockets, kicked rocks, long coats dragging the ground erased our footprints, nudged the low rug we walked. So that what I wanted was to be made of what made sound recede into suff, nudge repossess itself, be my birthright, nonsonance lie next to nudge, west of nudge, scratched inner skins, insistence. More than we could see, or say we couldn't see, non-seized tongue taken over, deficits say, cracked voices caught, stumbling strung. What it withheld was what we heard, thoughts ear bent not by sound, but by time lapse, lapse long wed with tone, where wood, water, wed we would also be. Albeit a balcony known as nonsonant serenade lay under our feet. Something we said we only dreamt we'd said. What said arrivals phantom would have known less restraint. World in retreat, shouted out from windows and rooftops, nonsonant nonetheless. Nonsonant world more real than any we'd expected, loomed, lit by quartet light. We lay on our backs looking up at the bottoms of ships. We were under the sea. Pinched one another, soaked woods awakened, pinched wood shivered, shook. A man made of wind and a woman, he said, showed up unannounced. Zara people, he proposed I be one of. Zara movement be music, Zara music. Holding air, he was holding the world, he intimated. Lolled his tongue, trailed off into singing. Liebert Ali, the name he now took. Sought movement, markers of movement, tongues numb with names, not having moved. Came now to a place was more time than place. Nonsonant music's tipped a quiver, long known place, known as by and by. We lay on our stomachs, looking down at the ground. A wall we'd seen dirt sliding down from. Heard, though there was no sound, a suggestion of sound. Nonsonant suff slipped earth, contrived. Something said in my sleep, called a deeper sleep. Deep dreams, deeper say, sown outward, Zigzag lightning hit him, he said. He insisted stiff nipples punctured his chest. A red-beaked bird pecked away at the ark it turned out they were on. Wood what before had been iron. Water what before had been wood. Aranel, the name he now called her. Nonsonant rut the whatsair inferred they were stuck in. Soul bone, long night lunge. They lay on their sides looking into each other's eyes. Scent of dry spit on their skins, having licked one another, held each other, lidless, let go. Aranel's ribs were the strings he plucked. Sophic struck, nonsonant lute rubbed razor-like, wrapped, skeletal, strong. She no longer the she who arrived unannounced. He no longer the he I'd been taken aside by. Two we now sat watching videos of the dead, no longer the two who put a shell to my ear. So remote an approximation, poignant, told he'd mirror himself, he masked himself. Shell so buffed it vanished, polished meant passed away. Spoke of an it which had become the tongue with which they spoke, what said she whose heavy chest pressed his. Mystic affliction, mystic remit, adamant imprint, rose from it, wanting it more, sweet bewilderment, godlike, seemed so, gone. This is number 34. What we rode was a boat he lay on his deck looking out from. Boat caught in quartet light. Onerous ghost of an Egyptian beginning. Tenuous union, oniric regret. Uninhabited room to the hand he'd have touched her with, gripped it emptied into the underness of her dress, dreamt and emptied it, gripped and let go. He lay on his back recollecting what had been. Glimpse drawn out into endlessness, the new and old wonder they were nothing underneath. Annuncia's neck sweated, but sweet, salty sweet. Annuncia drew his tongue to her neck. Raised her hand and would be her own witness. Backwards walking two-headed twin. One head would be Aranel, the other Lenore. Vaunted loveliness, vaunted allure. Vaunted flesh lately dubbed House of Bones. House they eventually exit, she insisted. Sooner not be said. Sooner not be seen, she said. An alternate house posed on bamboo flute bore Sophic stir. Proffered body all but available, vexed. They lay in our boat looking out at the earth. Flat but for the relief love gave it. They lay on their backs looking out at the sky. Whatever it was a boat we were on, bus we were on, sat on a train over the abject earth. Attended by two who wandered away, among those who got off to pee. Archicled city soon to be founded, we thought, glimpse gotten of God under loquat leaves. That it wasn't there, or that it was, but unreachable. Hard to say which was worse. The soon come Congress, no sooner come than gone. Train we thought we'd asked how long about, minds ever only half there. Linked arms, we whose hands held only gimme. Gone but for the look of a rival, whose hot mouths hawked, much obliged. Suddenly walked on newly collected limbs, adjutant legs beneath abrasive cloth. Off to our left, bright sea of strings, bounce of light off the water blinding us, more than we could see. Saw. Would-be train we'd heard about in sermons, songs. To ride was to bid exile goodbye. Ride meant to be done with waiting. Swung to one side though we were, then the other. Swung short of boated, bust. Stepped out of the car so that now it was a car we'd been in. Stepped, stood on the side of the road, stepped and shivered, met by newly arctic wind. Stowaway ghost. Stowaway gust caught in fallen cloth. Gnostic sleeper stowed away on the boat we rode. Runaway sunship. Trains, namesake music's runaway ghost. Posthumous music made us almost weep, wander. Soon come Congress we otherwise have been, some to have not by Lenore, by Arenal, every which way on our way out. Said by some to have been its own extenuance, sameness no longer itself, subtly altered, said to have lain with itself. Low circular song lamenting flight, frustration, so tightly entwined in Andumbulu was two into which it split, each the other's what said rut. Lay on their backs, imagining nut bent over them, starred arch the sun's boat absconded on, absent by, recondite once. We lay on our backs, imagining them, imagining us. Andumbulu was twins turned quartet complement, pan phenomenal choir, infant remit. So now New Stray lay west of Straw. Out was a balaphonic bridge, its beat our boat. Veteran wind wandered so far north we shook, shivered, voted out of aught we'd have been had we been able, gone against our will out of thought. Wherever we were, there was an elsewhere we were. Gruff alterity rosining the chords of our throats, blank but for the grain we gave it, swift glimpse gone after, apocryphal, epiphanous, map drawn on snatched away straw. Scattered be my name, something said, more soft than say, dreamt insinuance it turned out to be, albeit real, rubbed against our faces, raw, freight of wind and of waywardness, atlases, drift, draped and jammed task of heaven, short of heaven, moot condolences, coaxed out of stricken wood. Sea of strings to our left, yet again, symphonic shimmer, posthumous music all the more poignant, putative soul load, southern sky. Left of nonsonance we turned as the box got back its voice, regaled us with tales of lost ground gotten back, crooned of lost love re-won. But we were beyond it, bleak skeleton crew on the boat we rode, subtly in front, phantom projection, southern, proud. Wept adhesion, the way of the Kahlua, remnant water, what said salt. What said rise into inclement wind, blown abrasion, what said book of undoing the book. Scratched voice the near side of silence, a writing before writing, writing's words to announce, scorched air scoured, scuffed. Rough undumbuous draft whose weed they were, who lay on their backs wrapped in urlacancy. Rough weave and as rough and unwinding, rough turn, finding themselves so drawn. Tropic wind out of nowhere, world of magnetic rock, clung to, the better to be let go, they insisted. Beginning, they said again, to say goodbye. In Rack Tavern, we raised our glasses, drank to how far they'd come. Distant kin, long dead, brought to life by the wine we sipped. Revenant dead, said to have died of a dying thirst. Clink of glass, clink of chains, transmuted. Andumbulu was trauma, Andumbulu was blanche. Boat of years, black orphic lament, boat of yearning. The nay players, dilated nostril, adventitious odor only music addressed. So that hoarseness bore the ought we were after. Thaw the most abstract act we've ever inhabited, tossed low-throated perfume, weathered fret, window ever out of aught's reach. Sun cult, cargo cult. Pharaoh's Andalusian song, our secret cargo, the sun burning a hole in the sky. The voice was a boat where there be no boat, no balm, no abdominal blessing, unless the voice draw the torso up, abdominal scuff and the patient loin mud, ache and orexic trunk, some from under, hoist and thoracic struff, dreamt beginning, unbased itch and intransigence, in, urged inside, out. called Sound and Symbols. A sand-anointed wind spoke of survival, wood scratched raw, scoured bough, and of low sky poked at by branches, blown rush, thrown voice, leg bow, flute. Wind we all filled up with, caught in the tree we lay underneath. Tree filled up with wind and more than could be said. So-called ascendancy of shadow, branch, would-be roost, now not only a tree, more than a tree. It was the bending of boughs we read about, Ibn Arabi's reft ipseity, soon come condolence, theated, suf. We saved our breath, barely moved, said nothing. Soon come suzerainty, volubly afoot, braided what we read and what we heard and what stayed saves, giggly wind, wood, riffling wood. On the rock and reed flutes, desert weeds took our breath. Floor we felt we stood on, caustic earth we rode across. It was Egypt or Tennessee we were in. No one, eyes X'd out, could say which, fleet millenarian we it now was, whose arrival the wind announced. Night found us the far side of Steelaway Ridge, eyes crossed out, X's what were left, nameless what we saw we not saw. We ducked and ran, rained on by tree sap, dreaming, chattered at by wind and leaf stir, more than we'd have dreamt or thought. We lay on our backs, looking up at the limbs of the tree we lay underneath. Leaves our pneumatic book. We lay on our backs, unceased, reprieve. North of us was all an emolument, more than we'd have otherwise run. We worked at crevices, cracks, convinced we'd pry love loose, wrote our names out 7 times in dove's blood, kings and queens, crowned ourselves in sound. Duke was there, prayers, lady, count, Pharaoh came later. The soon-come Congress we'd heard so much about, soon come even sooner, south. So there was a new mood suddenly, blue but up-tempered, tossed, bitten into, all of us got our share. Pecks what had been kisses, beaks what once were lips, other than we were as we lay under tree limbs, red-beaked birds known as mooning what we were, heads crowned in sound, only in sound. This is a short song of the Underwood, number 55. It's subtitled Orphan Fragment. It began when I happened upon they were showing movie Black Orpheus on television one afternoon. I caught a few minutes of it. Carnival morning, they were Greeks in Brazil, Africans in Greek disguise. Said of herself, she was born in a house in heaven. He said he was born in the house next door. They were in hell. In Brazil, they were love-bait. To abide by hearing was what love was. To love was to hear without looking. Sound was the beloved's mummy cloth. All to say, said the exegete, love in hell was a voice, to be spoken to from behind, not be able to turn and look. It wasn't Greece where they were, nor was it beneath. Carnival morning in made-up hell, bodies bathed in loquat light, would-be songs all the more would-be titled, sound and ceremony, voice wound in bandages, raveling lamps. Up all night, slept well past noon, awoke restless, having dreamt she awoke on the lone coast, wondering afterwards what it came to, glimpsed in terseness, crevice, crack. Saw her dead mother and brother pull up in a car, her brother at the wheel not having driven, while alive, newly taught by death it appeared. A fancy car, bigger than any her mother had had while alive, she too better off, it appeared. A wishful being, it appeared, notwithstanding, the exegete impossibly benign. Dreamt a dream of dreams end, anxious, unannounced, Aranel's nevermore namesake, monks, anagrammatic, Lenore. That the dead return in luxury cars made us weep, pathetic as 10 elements, pitiable, sweetly misread, would be sweet. And let me finish with another poem from the new series, 43rd part. It's called Double Staccato. It's dedicated to Thaddeus Mosley. A tipsy walk, the walk we took. Tilt had its way, teeter. So to say, we said. Would what said serenade, emulated, mute, 43rd part. A closer walk through the forest of semblances nicked our skin. Wood's near side leaned in, leaned out. Gouge's gospel it was we brushed against. Wood's new kingdom come. At blade's edge, ground gave way. Planetary mint at admonishment. Legs abruptly rubbed, it seemed. Synesthetic snapped, synesthetic eye slit. Head broken off, come to a point, pointing up and back. Brain replied, say, on say. Brain said, say, laid elsewhere. Lay within squints reach. A wobbly walk through the forest of semblances it was. Sledge-headed lean looked out at us. Book of blade, alphabet of scuff it turned out. Scrape, scout, scuff. Water slid ashore not far away. Wood eventually water. Walk so long sung about, closer than we thought. Wood said to be source, as if to say it was once water. Wood already water. Grain was giving way. Sand lay grain on grain. We saw each one, said or thought we saw. Wave and oblique writing on wood. Ripple, wave our diluvian book. So to say, we said, so to say. What I heard was in my head, I said. No one was listening. Wood's walk talked, even so. What would Wood say, we asked, and we answered. So to say, we said, so to say. Dark woods siphoning light, we leaned in. Dark woods long way home. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ponte.